Competitive Strategy: Techniques for Analyzing Industries and Competitors by Michael E. Porter. Ever notice how some companies just seem to get it right? Take Apple. They're not just selling you a phone, they're selling you a lifestyle. Or Coca-Cola. It's not just fizzy water and sugar, it's somehow woven into the fabric of life around the world. And what about that cozy coffee shop in your neighborhood? You know, the one where they remember your name and your usual order. And despite being surrounded by corporate chains, there's always a line out the door. What's their secret? Pure luck? One brilliant idea at just the right moment? That's what most people assume. We love the story of the lightning strike moment of genius, the million-dollar idea scribbled on a napkin. But here's the thing. It's not magic. It's actually much more interesting than that. It's a game. And like any game, it has rules, patterns, and moves you can learn to recognize. Once you understand how the game works, suddenly everything makes sense. You can see why the winners keep winning and why others keep struggling. In 1980, a Harvard professor named Michael Porter wrote a book that basically handed us the instruction manual for this game. It was called Competitive Strategy, and calling it influential would be like calling the ocean damp. This book didn't just become a bestseller. It essentially created the entire modern field of business strategy. Before Porter's strategy was this fuzzy, hand-wavy concept that nobody could quite pin down. After Porter, it became something you could actually analyze and understand. Today, his ideas are the backbone of every major business school curriculum. They're used by top consulting firms worldwide, and they've guided decisions by countless CEOs who've shaped the world we live in. Porter himself is pretty interesting. He wasn't some charismatic entrepreneur or corner office executive. He was a scholar who combined the precision of economics with the messy reality of actual business. He studied hundreds of industries, everything from automobile manufacturing to lobster fishing, looking for the hidden patterns underneath. And what he discovered was a framework so powerful and timeless that it works just as well for analyzing a Silicon Valley startup today as it did for understanding steel mills 4 decades ago. So what's the secret he uncovered? That's exactly what we're diving into today. By the time we're done, I promise you'll see the business world through completely different eyes. You'll understand the invisible forces shaping everything from the prices you pay at the grocery store to which startups succeed and which ones crash and burn. And here's the best part. This isn't just for aspiring CEOs. These are thinking tools that apply to how you compete in any arena, how you make decisions, and how you create something that lasts. This is the playbook for how the game actually works. Let's start with a simple question. If you were going to play chess, what's the first thing you'd need to figure out? You wouldn't just randomly start sliding pieces around the board. You'd need to understand the board itself. You'd need to know how each piece can move, what each one can do, where the power lies. You'd need to understand the rules of the game. Porter's big breakthrough was realizing that business works exactly the same way. Before you can craft a winning strategy, you need to understand the playing field, the industry you're actually competing in. He argued that whether an industry is wildly profitable or barely scraping by isn't random. It's determined by the underlying structure of that industry. And that structure is shaped by 5 fundamental forces. This became his legendary 5 forces framework, and it's where everything else builds from. Imagine you want to open a business, let's say a coffee shop. You might think your only real competition is the cafe across the street. But Porter would tell you to zoom out and look at the entire battlefield. The first force is the most obvious one. Rivalry among existing competitors. That's the cafe across the street and all the others nearby. How many are there? Are they roughly the same size, or is there one monster player like Starbucks dominating everything? When you've got lots of competitors all fighting over the same customers, things get intense. Everyone starts competing on price, on promotions, on who has the better Wi-Fi, and all of that eats away at profits. It's like a bunch of kids fighting over the same toy. The more kids there are, and the more evenly matched they are, the louder and messier it gets. But the competition you can see is only part of the picture. The second force is the threat of new entrants. How easy is it for someone else to open up a competing coffee shop? If all they need is a small space and an espresso machine, you can bet that whenever it looks like coffee shops are making good money, someone new will jump in. This constant threat of new competition puts a ceiling on how profitable anyone can be. It's like trying to enjoy a picnic when ants keep showing up. No matter how nice things are, you know more are coming. But what keeps new players out? Porter called these barriers to entry. Think of them like castle walls. Some barriers are huge. Take economies of scale. If you need to be absolutely massive to make money, like in car manufacturing or computer chips, it's incredibly hard for someone new to break in. Another powerful barrier is brand identity. Coca-Cola has spent over a century and billions of dollars building their brand. You can't just whip that up over a weekend. Other barriers include things like locking up the best distribution channels, having patented technology nobody else can use, or simply needing an obscene amount of money just to get started. The higher these walls, the safer the companies already inside are, and the more profit they can keep for themselves. The third force is the bargaining power of buyers. That's your customers. How much leverage do they have over you? If you're a wedding photographer and a couple is choosing between you and 10 other photographers who all seem pretty similar, that couple has a lot of power. They can pit you against each other and squeeze your price down. But if you're the only photographer in town who does this incredibly unique artistic style they love, suddenly their power shrinks way down. You've got something they can't easily find elsewhere. Buyers have more power when they're buying in large volumes, when what you're selling is pretty much a commodity, meaning they're all basically the same, and when it costs them nothing to switch from you to someone else. The fourth force flips that around, the bargaining power of suppliers. These are the people who provide what you need to run your business. For a coffee shop, that's your coffee bean supplier, your dairy supplier, the company selling you cups and napkins. If there's only one high-quality coffee bean supplier in your area, they've got you by the throat. They can raise prices, and you don't have much choice. But if there are dozens of great suppliers, all competing for your business, suddenly you're the one with leverage. Suppliers have more power when there are fewer of them than there are companies like yours, when what they provide is really important to you, and when switching to a different supplier would be a huge pain. Now, the fifth force is perhaps the sneakiest, and the one people forget about most often. It's the threat of substitute products or services. A substitute isn't just a different brand of the same thing. It's a completely different solution to the same problem. For your coffee shop, the substitute isn't the cafe down the street. It's the energy drink from the gas station. It's tea someone makes at home. It's the person who decides to just get more sleep instead of needing caffeine. All of these solve the underlying need: energy, alertness, a morning ritual in a different way. Video conferencing is a substitute for business travel. Streaming services are substitutes for cable TV. These alternatives put a lid on how much an entire industry can charge. If coffee gets too expensive, people just start drinking more tea. So there you have it. The 5 forces: rivalry, new entrants, buyer power, supplier power, and substitutes. Together, they tell you the fundamental economics of any industry. They determine who gets to keep the value that's created. Does it go to the companies as profit, or does it get competed away by rivals, squeezed out by powerful suppliers, or bargained down by demanding customers? A strong force is a threat to profits. A weak force is an opportunity. The whole point of strategy, according to Porter, is finding a position where your company can defend itself against these forces, or better yet, actually influence them in your favor. This framework is revolutionary because it shows you that competition isn't just about beating the other guy selling the same thing. It's a much bigger game. You're simultaneously competing with your customers, your suppliers, potential new entrants, and companies making completely different products that solve the same problem your product does. Once you see the world through this lens, you can't unsee it. Okay, so you understand the playing field. You understand the 5 forces shaping your industry. Now what? How do you actually win? This is where Porter drops his next bombshell. He argued that fundamentally, there are only 3 ways to achieve a lasting competitive advantage. He called these the 3 generic strategies, not dozens, not 50 different approaches. 3. The first is overall cost leadership. The concept is straightforward. Become the lowest cost producer in your industry. Notice that's lowest cost, not necessarily lowest price. You might charge the same as everyone else, but if your costs are lower, you pocket more profit. Think Walmart or McDonald's. Everything about their systems is obsessively designed to strip out every fraction of a penny in cost. They build huge, efficient facilities. They're maniacal about operational details. Their massive volume gives them incredible leverage over suppliers. They design products specifically to be cheap to make and deliver. Being the cost leader is a powerful shield against the five forces. If a brutal price war breaks out, you can stay profitable while everyone else bleeds money. Powerful buyers can only push you down to the cost level of the next most efficient competitor. You can handle cost increases from suppliers better than your rivals. And your low-cost position often becomes its own barrier to entry, because a newcomer would need to invest a fortune to match your scale and efficiency. Cost leadership is like showing up to a fight wearing armor. The second strategy is differentiation. Here you're not trying to be the cheapest. You're trying to be special. Your goal is to create something that customers across the industry see as unique in some important way. This uniqueness can come from all sorts of places. Exceptional design or brand image, like Apple or Mercedes-Benz. Cutting-edge technology. Amazing customer service. An unbeatable distribution network, like Caterpillar, which is famous for being able to get you parts and service anywhere on Earth. A differentiator isn't trying to appeal to everyone. They're trying to offer something so valuable that certain customers will happily pay a premium for it. That premium gives them higher profit margins, which is their defense. Differentiation creates loyalty, which shields you from rivals. People who love their iPhones aren't going to switch to Android just to save $50. That loyalty is also a barrier to entry because newcomers have to somehow overcome the unique position you've built. And because your buyers see you as having no real alternatives, their power over you shrinks. You're not selling a commodity, you're selling an experience, a solution, maybe even part of someone's identity. The third strategy is focus. This one's different. While cost leadership and differentiation are about winning across the whole industry, focus is about picking one specific, narrow slice and serving that slice better than anyone else possibly could. Your target might be a particular type of customer, a specific segment of the product line, or just one geographic area. The whole idea behind focusing is that by concentrating all your energy on that narrow target, you can serve it more effectively or more efficiently than competitors trying to be all things to all people. Within your chosen niche, you can achieve differentiation by perfectly meeting those specific needs, or you can achieve low cost by designing everything around just that target. Sometimes you can do both. Picture a high-end bike shop that only caters to serious competitive cyclists. They're not trying to compete with Walmart on kids' bikes. Instead, they offer expert fitting, advanced equipment, and specialized knowledge that the big box stores can't touch. Or think of a regional airline that only flies between a handful of cities, offering convenience and low fares for those specific routes. They're not trying to be Delta. They're trying to own their little corner of the world. Focus is about being a big fish in a small pond. So there are your three paths. Be the cheapest, be the most unique, or be the absolute best at serving a specific niche. And here's Porter's crucial warning. You have to choose. The worst strategic mistake you can make, he argues, is getting stuck in the middle. This is the company trying to be everything to everyone. They want low costs, but also premium features. They try to serve every type of customer. And as a result, they don't do any of it well. The company stuck in the middle doesn't have the scale and focus to be the cost leader. They don't have the clear uniqueness to be a differentiator. And they don't have the dedication to a specific niche to be a focuser. Their culture is confused. Their organization is pulled in conflicting directions. They lose price-sensitive customers to the cost leaders. They lose quality-focused customers to the differentiators. They lose niche customers to the focusers. And almost inevitably, their profits suffer. Think about struggling department stores today. trying to compete with both Walmart on price and specialty boutiques on experience, and losing at both. They're stuck in the middle. Porter's message here is powerful. Great strategy requires choice and trade-offs. It's not just about what you decide to do, it's equally about what you decide not to do. Trying to do everything is a recipe for mediocrity. Understanding the playing field and picking your strategy is huge. But there's another critical piece to the puzzle. You need to deeply understand your opponents. You need serious competitor analysis. Most people think they know their competition. They check out their ads, glance at their prices, maybe browse their website. But Porter says you need to go way deeper. He lays out a framework for competitor analysis, built on 4 key pieces. You're trying to figure out what makes them tick. First, understand your competitors' future goals. What are they actually trying to achieve? Are they gunning for market share at any cost? Do they want steady, predictable profits? Are they trying to be the innovation leader? Knowing their goals helps you predict whether they're happy with where they are now, and how likely they are to make a big move or react strongly to one of yours. A company obsessed with growth will react very differently to you stealing some market share than a company just trying to generate stable cash flow for shareholders. Second, dig into their assumptions. What do they believe about themselves and the industry? Do they still see themselves as the quality leader even though that's not true anymore? Do they cling to some outdated conventional wisdom? A competitor's assumptions create blind spots. If you can spot where their view of reality is wrong, you can exploit it. For example, if a rival believes their customers are fiercely loyal, when that loyalty is actually crumbling, a well-timed price promotion might be devastatingly effective. They won't react quickly because their assumptions tell them they're safe. Third, look at their current strategy. What are they actually doing right now? How are they competing on product price, marketing, distribution? This shows you what they think is working. Fourth, assess their capabilities. What are their real strengths and weaknesses? Are they good at innovation but terrible at execution? Do they have tons of cash, or are they drowning in debt? Do they have great engineers but a weak sales team? Their capabilities determine what moves they can actually make and how they can respond to yours. When you put these 4 elements together, goals, assumptions, current strategy, and capabilities, you can build what Porter calls a competitor response profile. You can start answering the really important questions. Where is this competitor vulnerable? What move will trigger the strongest reaction from them? Is there something we can do that they won't be able to counter effectively? This is where strategy becomes chess. It's not just about making a good move. It's about making a move your opponent can't effectively counter. Maybe you attack them in a market that's strategically important to them, but where responding would cost them dearly. Or you create a situation where any effective response would hurt another part of their business. When mini computers emerged, IBM faced exactly this dilemma. Jumping aggressively into mini computers would undermine their incredibly profitable mainframe business. That hesitation created an opening for new companies to thrive. Finding a battleground where your competitors are unprepared, unmotivated, or uncomfortable is the art of strategy. The final major idea is that the game never stands still. The industry structure, the board itself, is constantly shifting. The 5 forces are always in motion, and the nature of competition evolves with them. Porter uses the product life cycle as a lens for understanding this. Industries are typically born in an introduction phase, explode during growth, eventually plateau in maturity, and sometimes fade into decline. In the introduction phase, everything's uncertain, the rules are being figured out, technology is unstable. The main challenge is just convincing customers to try the new thing. During growth, demand explodes. The key challenge is keeping up. New competitors flood in, but the pie is growing so fast, there's usually enough for everyone. The transition to maturity is one of the most critical periods. Growth slows. Suddenly, the only way to grow is stealing customers from someone else. Competition intensifies. Buyers have experience now and become more demanding. Focus shifts to cost and service. Price wars break out. This is when the shakeout happens. weaker players get forced out. The strategic sloppiness that was forgiven during rapid growth now becomes fatal. This is when being stuck in the middle kills you. In decline, industry sales are actually shrinking. This can be brutal, especially if companies have high exit barriers, things that make it hard to leave the business, like specialized equipment they can't sell or emotional attachments. But Porter points out something counterintuitive. A declining industry isn't necessarily unprofitable. If capacity leaves in an orderly way, the remaining companies, especially a strong leader or focused niche player, can actually do quite well. The brilliant strategist doesn't just react to these changes. They anticipate them. They look at the forces driving evolution, technology shifts, changing customer needs, the spread of knowledge, and predict how the structure will change. They position their company to take advantage of that new structure before others even see it coming. Better yet, they try to shape that evolution, to influence the industry in ways that play to their own strengths. And that's the essence of competitive strategy. It's a way of thinking, a framework for seeing the whole game, not just your little corner of it. It starts with deep analysis of the industry structure through the 5 forces. Then it demands a clear, disciplined choice of strategy, cost leadership, differentiation, or focus, to build a defensible position. It requires truly understanding your competitors, not just what they're doing, but why. And finally, it demands awareness that the game is always changing, and the biggest opportunities often come from anticipating and shaping that change. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's a rigorous, powerful way of understanding how business actually works. And once you have this lens, you can apply it anywhere, anytime. So what do we actually take away from all this? When you first dive into Porter's work, it can feel a bit cold and analytical. 5 forces, 3 strategies, frameworks everywhere. It might seem like it's all just economic calculation, but I think that misses something important. At its heart, competitive strategy is really about clarity. It's about cutting through all the noise, the trends, the buzzwords, the gut feelings, the everyone knows, conventional wisdom, and getting to what's actually true. It teaches you to ask better questions. Not just how do we grow, but what's the real structure of our industry, and how do we build something sustainable? Not just what's our competitor doing, but why are they doing it, and what does that tell us about their next move? For anyone early in their career, this way of thinking is incredibly powerful. And here's the thing, it applies way beyond running a corporation. Think about your own career path. In a sense, you are a business of one. What's the industry you're competing in? What are the 5 forces at play for you? What makes it hard for others to do what you do? That's your barrier to entry. Who are your buyers? The employers or clients you want to serve? How much power do they have over you? What's your generic strategy? Are you building your career on being supremely reliable and efficient? That's cost leadership. Are you developing unique skills nobody else has? That's differentiation. Are you becoming the absolute best at serving one specific niche? That's focus. Porter's framework shows you that being stuck in the middle, being a generalist with no clear advantage, is dangerous, not just for companies, but for individuals too. So what can you do right now to start using these ideas? Here are a couple of simple exercises. First, pick an industry you find fascinating. Could be video games, electric cars, streaming services, anything. Try mapping out the 5 forces. Who are the main rivals? How hard is it for new companies to enter? Who are the suppliers and buyers? And how much power do they have? What are the substitutes? Just wrestling with these questions will give you a much deeper understanding of why that industry works the way it does. Second, look at your favorite brands. For each one, try identifying which generic strategy they're pursuing. Is Nike a differentiator or cost leader? What about Toyota? Is that indie coffee roaster you love a focuser? This will help you spot these strategies in action everywhere. You'll notice that the most successful companies have made a clear, disciplined choice and stuck with it. That's our journey through competitive strategy by Michael Porter. We've covered the core ideas today, but I'll be honest, A summary is like looking at a map of an incredible city. The map is useful, it shows you the layout, but it can never replace actually walking those streets, discovering things for yourself. The real depth of this book comes from reading it yourself, seeing the detailed examples, understanding the nuances, watching how all the ideas connect and build on each other. This summary is here to help you decide if this is a journey worth taking. If anything we've talked about today sparked your curiosity, I really encourage you to pick up the book. Reading it isn't just about learning business theory. It's about gaining a framework for thinking that brings clarity to complexity. The link is in the description. And if you found this valuable, if you want to keep exploring the foundational ideas that shape our world, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next deep dive. Let's keep learning and growing together.